Hi, my name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher, and welcome to my Flosstube channel. Today is Sunday, April the 24th, and it is a sunshiny day here. It was a sunshiny day yesterday. It's supposed to be a sunshiny day tomorrow, which I'm very excited about. The fact that we had snow twice this week is less than enthusiastic, and we are at risk that there could be more snow this week. I was catching up with a friend of mine and I said, I'm totally fine with getting the moisture, and I acknowledge that we need the moisture. I'm actually fine with that. I would just really prefer that the moisture not arrive white. If it wants to rain, if it wants to rain for the next week, I'd be totally fine with that. Just don't let it be snow. Anyway, but snow it was, and we're at risk of snow again. And I don't know why I'm surprised, because my line is always, where I live, we are always at risk until like the 7th of May that there could be snow any given day. Generally, we're still at risk for snow at other random parts, believe it or not, of the year outside of winter, but not quite so likely. An interesting story I have in my repertoire to tell, although I clearly don't personally remember it, is that the year my parents got married, they got married in August. I think it was August 15th, they got married, and they had a really beautiful sunshiny day, and they had friends that were getting married the next Saturday, and they got snow in August. Yeah, so even in August you have to plan carefully. Anyway, we're coming up to May the 7th, when hopefully all of the moisture will take the form of rain, but we're not quite there yet, so still at risk. Generally, most of the snow is disappearing fairly quickly. Again, actually, even where I live, depending on where you live in the city, it's the amount that you get is very, very different. Like, you know, there have been times where my parents live about a 7 to 10 minute drive from where I am, and the difference between what they get and what I get can sometimes be shocking. But that's just how unique our weather systems are where I live. And if you're new to my channel, if you're a first-time visitor, thank you for stopping by. This is a channel about cross-stitching, not really weather, although there's generally a weather update, but it's mostly about cross-stitching and the stitching that I've done this week. And as always, thank you to those of you who come back and watch faithfully to see my journey and see what I'm working on. From the comments last week, so I think the metallics was not too bad. Like I say, even on the video, it's like, I don't know that you could really see clearly the different thicknesses and all that kind of stuff, because you know you are not talking to a professional here, right? This is not my profession. But I hope the discussion was helpful, and as always, with everything that I talk about, what you're getting is my views on the topic, what I'm seeing, what I'm thinking about what I'm seeing, etc., etc., etc. How any of those will work for your project is unique to you, your stitching method, the fabric that you're working on. So if nothing else, you have some thoughts on the different metallics that you can use to maybe help inform your choices on metallics and what your options are. And on that topic, I think it was Dee who said she was working on a project that used diamonds, so she might have to think about light effects. And it's like, yeah, again, depending on your fabric, it may work better. And, you know, it's the same way that, you know, it's like Aida and linen discussions. If you love Aida and that's your favorite thing to work on Aida. If you love linen and that's your favorite thing to work on linen. There are always camps, like I always know that there are camps that are petite treasure braid, like why would you use Kreinik if you could use petite treasure braid? That same thing happens in metallic land. You just have to find the thing that works best for you and the project that you're currently working on. Thank you to the several of you that were thankful that I overthink things. And the answer is yes. I said it last week. I'll say it again. I know that I tend to overthink things. And again, I know that about my personality. That's just how I work, and I'm comfortable with that. So that's just how it's going to roll. It's how I do things. On the sampler stitches, you know, do I tend to overthink things? Yes, because my expectation is I will have spent a year working on that project, and I want to make sure that when I get to the very end of the project that I'm very, very happy with how that has worked out. Anna left a comment, which again, I think the sentiment was very good. It's like the path is really good because the path leads you to learning. And I think I looked at that comment and went, oh yeah, that's really true. And again, this was about the metallics, where even though my end decision was I was still going to go with the light effects, which came with the kit after all of that, I had learned a lot of things, and I can use those learnings when I go to work on other projects, which is absolutely true and accurate. And that's, yes, it may not necessarily, well, I still go, there were benefits to that process, even for Jerusalem, because what it did is it solidified my solution, right? Like if I had just taken the Petite Treasure Braid equivalents and marched along the path, I'm not sure that I would have liked the resulting effect. So anyway, still happy with my decision. And on that topic, I had another friend who was catching up with me after she'd watched the Flosstube, and she said she was laughing at the end because she was like, all the way through the discussion, she was like, I really think she should use light effects, but she's not going to do it. She doesn't like light effects. She's going to choose one of the others. But I really think she should use light effects, and she's not going to make that the answer. And then she was like, oh my goodness, I got to the end and you said the final answer is light effects. She's like, I was so sure that you weren't going to do that. But I laughed. She also went, looking at what you did, I totally agree. I think that's the right answer. But I'm so surprised you made that choice. And again, it's, I choose what is best for the project. We all know that. The other one, Carol left a really nice comment about saying one of the things that she's learned from watching my channel is even though the colors or whatever it is that have drawn her to the project, she is free to personalize it and to make it into exactly what she wants. And so she's now more comfortable making changes to the designs. And I think that is awesome. And that truly is, I think, one of the best outcomes that I could have. Because I always laugh. I always think back to this one class that I was taking at a local needlework shop that has since closed. Because I know I've told the story before. I sailed into the class late because I was coming from work. So I was the last one to arrive. Everybody else had already set up and was starting to work on their projects. I sailed in and hauled out my fabric, and the entire table gasped. So they went, what is that? Because I had changed the fabric. And it was, again, it's still, I still think of that memory now, because I go, it's a table full of older women than I was, where I was just like, it has never occurred to you to change the fabric? And apparently not. It was a brand new concept to everyone else at my table, that you didn't necessarily have to use the called for items. Anyway, remember that. Sorry, I'm having this battle right now where we're coming out of winter, and the rest of my skin knows that we're coming out of winter, but for some reason my hands and my lips are not on the same page. My lips have been as dry as all get out, and my hands are just killing me. So, sorry, excuse me while I apply a little hand lotion, because it's driving me nuts. And yes, because where I live, yes, I have hand lotion beside most of the spots where I sit. Anyway, whew, oh, doesn't that feel better? I know, weird. All right. The next part is we need to talk about the things about metallics that I forgot to say last week, because you know there's always things that I forget to say. So I particularly want to talk about things that are happening with Kreinik right now. So Kreinik still is suffering from the effects of supply chain issues that are currently occurring. And they're having some really unique challenges. When I was, and it always comes up because, you know, last week I was putting the link in the page and went, oh, right, should have remembered to say this. So straight up on their website, Kreinik only sells to retailers. So they straight up have a comment on their website that says, from the time you place an order, they are currently taking about 10 weeks to fill an order. The other thing about them is that they are not, given the current situation and the current issues that they're facing, they are not making all of the colors in all of their lines at the current time. So they are also clear to say that the colors that they're not producing are not discontinued. So they're not going away forever, according to what it says on the website. But if you're looking for something, it may be easy just to have a quick check on the Kreinik page, because you can call up individual pages, you know, whether it's blending filament, number 4 braid, number 8 braid, etc., etc. You can go on and see all of those colors, because it will tell you what colors they are currently producing. And so if your color is not on there, so for example, one of the color conversions in that Fabi Riley metallic conversion chart that I've linked to a couple of times, one of the colors, when you get over to the Kreinik option, one of those colors is not currently being made. And given how far we are into supply chain land issues, it may be, you know, it may be much harder for you to locate a shop that might have had enough stock, you know, from 2 years ago, if you're looking for that color. So again, little recommendation, if you're looking to place an order for Kreinik, you know, again, know where you're shopping from, because if you're shopping from a site where they say we only show you products we have currently in stock, you'll know instantly. If you're looking to order from a shop that says we will order in whatever we don't have, it might save you a little bit of a back and forth with that particular shop if you have a look at the Kreinik site, so you know whether or not they're currently manufacturing that. The other issue they're having is spools. Now, I graciously, you know, because I haven't quite cleared up, believe it or not, from the nativity spools, I've actually kept a couple of empty ones just because I went, you know, I used like more than an entire spool on that project. Anyway, so these are, you know, the size of spools for what I usually have for Kreinik. And I laughed because last summer I was picking up Kreinik for a project that's coming up, and I had a little bit of like, what happened here, because I think it's as around like last summer-esque is how I remember it in my head. You know, the spools went to white. So you kind of look and it's like, what's the white stuff doing in here? So they went from black to white spools. Right now, and I've gotten this from a couple of different sources. So again, caveat to this entire discussion, as we all know, I've had no direct discussions with Kreinik. No one from Kreinik has ever spoken to me, nor have I ever tried to speak to them directly. So this is just all things I've gleaned from other sources and reading on their website. So listener beware. They can't get the spool, this size spool anymore. So they're still manufacturing their product, but they're having to put them on bigger spools, which is what they can get at the moment. And the bigger spools are like that big. So they're quite a bit bigger, which has a couple of ramifications. Believe it or not, the shipping cost for this spool and the shipping cost for this spool are quite different. You may or may not know, when you're the post offices have these, you know, things that measure how fat your package is. And if it slips through the slot, it can be treated as sort of one type of mail. If it doesn't slip through the slot, then it for sure has to go as a certain type of parcel. The fact that they're having to move from the small spool to the bigger spool puts you for sure into parcel land. So if you're wondering about like some of your shipping costs maybe going up dramatically, if you're looking for Kreinik, simply because they can't get the small spools. So they're making their product and they're currently putting them onto the bigger spool, which comes at a cost to you as the consumer. So again, another thing to potentially think about, maybe Rainbow Gallery is an option, because they come on the cards, they're flatter, they'll be cheaper to ship. So just a few more thoughts on that one. The other thing that I forgot to mention last week, I've heard about this, but I have not done it myself, but it is an intriguing concept. Because I watched someone where they said, you know, whenever they get metallics, period, they have figured out for their stitching what the perfect length of metallic is. And so she's got like a board that results, you know, if you've seen all those people who are doing the floss winding to put them onto thread drops, you know, whether it's a wood thing or something or other, everybody's doing that except for me. So she has a board that is the perfect size for metallics, and what she does is she wraps her stuff around there and then uses a product called fray check and sort of applies the fray check down the middle, you know, lets it dry. I was going to bring a bottle of fray check because I have some in the house. Fray check can also be used for if you don't have a serger and you don't want to, you know, baste around the edge of your fabric, you can apply this, and it will sort of, as far as I'm concerned, effectively glue the edges of your piece. It sounds bad, but anyway, I have used fray check in the early days. But she takes the fray check and she puts it down the middle of that board, lets it dry, comes back and cuts through, you know, so she does a little section of the fray check and then cuts through that section, because effectively what it will have done is it will have glued the edges together, and it means it doesn't fray on her. So that's something, I always have that in the back of my head. My problem is of course, I have never come up with what the perfect length of metallic is for me. I'm still working on that. But I do have that in the back of my head, you know, going, maybe I should try that for something. I haven't done it yet, but if you're looking for options, that's an option. All I can say is it intrigued me, but I haven't done anything with it. But if you're coming up on a project that has a lot of metallics, that might have some value to you. All right. The other thing, because I usually forget about these things, you know, so go back 5 weeks, my plan was to say, hey, I'm at my 100th video, yay, but I didn't. So that one sailed by and I said nothing. This is actually, tomorrow is my second Flosstube anniversary. So 2 years of spending time making videos on Flosstube, which I've mostly been faithful other than that little blip last December. But anyway, so 2 years. It's longer than some shows, and it helps when you don't have to answer to anybody for what you're doing. Anyway. All right, with that, let's get into some stitching. So what did I work on this week? Well, I'm actually just looking over here going, oh yeah, you forgot to put that on a board. It'll be fine. As always, I am working on my Cottage of the Month from Country Cottage Needleworks. That's what April is supposed to look like. And we know that the primary goal this week was to get April completed, and given the size of this piece, not hard to see that that got finished. So there is my April. Very happy with how it came out. I am glad that I changed. So again, I toned down the pink, just made it a little lighter. I toned down the yellow from what was originally called for. Last week, I very graciously told you I was actually using the called for color to do this outline of the house. It turns out I didn't, because I was coming up to do stitch the word April, which is in that same color, and I looked at my floss away bag and went, that's not the called for color. Anyway, so I ended up using, I know I said last week that I used the called for, which was DMC 553. That is not what I used. I ended up using DMC 509 because apparently I paid no attention to the numbers on the cards. Yeah. So that one you also were like, sorry, the card and the bag and the, sorry, what's going on there? I don't have it here, but I am trying to use up all of the bobbinated floss that I have, which is actually quite a bit at the moment because I've inherited some stashes. So bobbinated floss goes into the floss away bag, and we're hoping to use that up first before we bring in new skeins. But anyway, yeah, so there's my April. So I'm still on track with my goal over the course of 2022 to get each cottage finished in the month that they are. So April gets finished in April. So I usually try to finish it much earlier in the month. So this was quite a bit of a, this is very late in the month for me to finish this. But it is what it is, because we all know I got distracted with Lent stitching. So that, yeah, as usual, I'm looking around at the piles going, where do I put this? Okay, so that is April. Another one bites the dust. Yeah, we're not into fully finishing things yet. You knew that's going to be a bit yet. Let's get the stitching done first, then we'll worry about fully finishing. So the next one we're going to talk about is Sampler of Stitches. So this is a 9-part, a series of 9 charts from the Drawn Thread that I'm doing as a stitch along, hosted by Sarah the Stitchin' Mommy. Ugh, and I just realized I've got DEF here, but I don't have GHI, but it'll be fine. So where did I get to this week? Well, I'm happy with my progress this week, and we'll talk about that in just a second here once I get myself organized. All right, so what did I get accomplished? Well, you'll be happy to know, again, I'm gonna hold it up fairly close there for a second. The white is really hard to see on camera, but you can see it just fine in real life. You'll be happy to know that the 87th time is the charm. So I did finish my Eastern stitches here. I used 1 strand of Soie d'Alger to do that. I am content with how they look. Am I happy? That's a bit enthusiastic. Thrilled? Certainly not. They're fine. They're fine. And after working on Eastern stitches for 472 times, I was ready to be done with them. So I just sat down one night and went, just do the Eastern stitches and be done with them. So that's what I did there. I also finished this section here. I went back and just, despite the debate about doing the diagonal chevron versus the diagonal 4-sided stitch, I ended up sticking with the diagonal chevron just because I didn't have to think quite so much. And again, I did this stitch using 1 strand of Soie d'Alger. What they tell you to use in the pattern is to use 1 strand of Soie 103, and I'm just finding that the Soie 103 it's not enough on my fabric for how I want it to look. So even though I have the Soie 103, I think pretty much for this project I'm saying it's going away, because I so far have not used it anywhere, and every time it's been called for, I've either replaced it with Soie Perlee or 1 strand of Soie d'Alger. So that's just how my project is coming along. So best things so far is that now part 1 and part 2 are complete, other than stitching on buttons, beads, charms, those things. And there's only a few of them. So in DEF, I'm missing my dragonfly charm. So then I continued over here to GHI. So I have not finished the God's Eyes. Finished. I haven't even started. I tried that one time and went, you're gonna have to, you know, work at that one. When I came to work on this part, I just wanted to make some progress. So I have not done the God's Eye, so that's missing from G. The part that you can't see here is I did do, I don't remember what this stitch is, but I did it. I used again one strand. It calls for using the Soie 103. Ugh, I'm so sorry. There you, maybe if I hold it really close you can see it. I ended up using one strand of Soie d'Alger as opposed to the Soie 103. It says in the instructions to pull it really, really tightly, and I didn't pull it really, really tightly because it just didn't work for me. And the other interesting thing, particularly on this stitch, like I feel like it would have been helpful in the chart if they had said, like, how to start and end these stitches. You know, so you can always start with an away waist knot that you clip off. But sort of when you get to the end and there's like hardly anything on the back, you know, some of these other ones where it's been pulled, I've had other things around it that I felt were close enough that I could sort of, you know, tie into and tie off of. But this one I felt was really in an inconvenient spot for coming up with a really good way to start and finish it. So, and when I don't have a really good spot like that, that's where when I'm trying to do pulled work, it doesn't pull quite as tightly and stay as pulled as I would normally get it. But at that point in time, I was done with it. So I was like close enough. You can see that it is somewhat pulled. It's just not as pulled as I probably could have gotten it. And then I've been having the debate over here about house versus finding some other stitch. I think I'm going to end up putting the house. I was pretty sure last week that I was going to put the house in as opposed to trying to figure out what that other specialty stitch is. And the answer is I still think I'm going to put in the house. So last night I was looking out my Ultimate Sampler Motif book and reminding myself which house it was that I felt would work in there. It actually does call for a couple of different colors, so I just need to make some color choices on that and get that stitched in. So that'll be straight up cross stitching, so that won't be any problem at all. Problem child, not problem child. And then down here in I, yeah, because I forgot the chart. Let's see if I hold this up really close. So down here in I have all of these done. I just need to do these insects, and these are generally back stitched with one stitch of cross stitching for the heads of the insects. So again, not difficult, but at that point in time I was just like I was ready to I was ready to put this project away for a bit. So I was just like, it's close enough. We'll get there. The other interesting thing I was looking at, you know, because I was having the debate this week about, do I find out what that other specialty stitch is and put it in, or do I do the house? So I was having that debate with myself. I was looking at those pictures of the 4 projects that I'd taken when I was at Craft Connection. I'm very grateful I have those pictures, and I need to pay more attention to those pictures. So for those of you who are at a different spot in sampler stitches, I don't want to say that you're behind, because there's no behind in cross stitching. If you're not where I'm at, I did see on those pictures something really, really brilliant, and I wish I had looked at the pictures earlier so that I could have incorporated into my project. By the time I saw it, I was like, you've done too much, and we're not unpicking that. So what some of them did is right here, this is like interlaced something something. This is the Italian cross stitch, and this is the Indian stitch. Again, there's an issue in the pattern because it says when you do the Indian stitch that you do the long horizontal stitch with the Soie Perlee, and in the instructions, well, in the graph part of the instructions, it says to use one strand of navy soie d'Alger to do the diagonal stitch in the middle. In the written out instructions, it doesn't tell you to do the navy. I looked at several things and I said I was going to keep it all white. The interesting thing is, as far as I am concerned, Indian stitch over here and antique stitch over here are one and the same. I had every intention to go back and haul out the chart for A and see if they made any comment, but I didn't do that. But as far as I'm concerned, these are actually the same stitch, just with two different names. Anyway, which is totally fine. But what they did, the one that I wish I had done, so this is a dark blue, this is a white, this is done with the light blue. This is essentially the interwoven part is done with the light blue. So it really comes across as light blue, with the navy blue being the back stitch bottom and top. What the smart people did from the pictures is that they actually reversed these two so that you had the dark blue, light blue, white, or whatever color they were using, and then light blue again over here. And I wish I had done that, because I just think it would have spaced out a little bit better, you know. So you've got the white up here and you've got the white down here. I just, you know, when you look at where they're using the white, it's kind of spaced out differently. So I wish I had done that. So if you have not done your eye yet, that's just something for you to consider. As always, it's your project and you can do what you want with it. But when I saw that in the pictures, because I was looking at something else, I really wished I had swapped them as well. So I've now added a note to self that before, so when I start stitching on this tonight, well, not so much tonight because I know what's going on, I think, tonight, but before I start on the letter J, I need to look at those 4 pictures and see what people did and see if they did anything different, so that I am prepared in case I need to make some decisions. So we're getting close. I was really hoping to have all of GH and I completed before we got to today, but technically, according to my calendar, because you know I've got a calendar. According to my calendar, I is not supposed to be completed until next Sunday night. So I'm technically a little bit ahead, but not. Let's say I'm on track. I would really like to finish GH and I. So finish the God's Eye, stitch in the house, stitch in the insects, because then chart number 3 will be done. And in the broader scope of things, that's looking pretty good, because that means the first, we will be like a third of the way through the charts. So 3 out of 9 charts completed. At the end of April, we will be a third of the way through the year. So all of that's lining up quite nicely. I was watching the Stitchin' Mommy this week, and when she talks about it, like, I feel like her schedule and my schedule are not quite in sync, and I can't figure out where we're off in it. And the answer is it doesn't matter. It's a stitch along. There are no set deadlines. There are no set anything. Stitch along, start along, your choice. But when she talks about it, when she says, like, she has to have things completed, and when I say I have to have things completed, they don't quite sync up. They're close, but not quite. I can't figure out where we're off, and the answer is, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. as long as I'm stitching to my schedule. But again, while I was watching her this week, I kind of went, where are we off? I couldn't figure it out. But it does mean, the interesting thing is, because I've allowed myself 2 weeks for every letter, the interesting thing is I only have 1 week in my schedule for this last part down here, right? Because Z is the last letter. So that's number 26, and 26 times 2 is your 52 weeks. So I really... I only have a week in the schedule to get this block done. So I feel like I need to get a little bit ahead to really keep on track with this. I also know that I've got some, well, I'm hoping to get some traveling done this year. Congratulations, traveling is happening again. So I am hoping to get some travel in, and sampler stitches is not a project that I would take with me when I was traveling. So I've also got to factor that into my schedule. So I've had a little mental note to self, like you need to get a little bit ahead, because hopefully there will be some traveling coming up in the next, number of, so between now and October, hopefully I've got a couple of trips coming up, and I won't be able to get my Sunday stitching in on those ones. So I feel like I need to get a little bit ahead. The other thing I want to talk about this one is, it was interesting because I was also catching up with Rachel Q Stitches. She's got a Flosstube video. I was catching up with her. And by the way, Rachel, if you're watching, I'm not sure I left a comment or not, but it's like, I can't wait to watch what you're doing in May. I think that will be so fun. It's not such a great answer for me because I'm not good with like 31 starts. But I can't wait to watch what you're doing because those look really interesting. So really looking forward to watch your journey in May. So if you're interested in what I'm talking about, go check out Rachel Q Stitches. I will link her Flosstube channel below. She has been working on the Erica Michaels series of specialty stitches charts that she did. So she also did an alphabet of specialty stitches. All of those charts are available for free from the Rainbow Gallery website. She's up to S. She said her line is like, I am so tired. If I don't see another specialty stitch for like the rest of fill in said time, I think I'm going to be fine. She's so over specialty stitches. So it was an interesting comment. I kind of laughed at that and went, well, I'm at I. It will be very interesting to see when I get to S if I go, oh my goodness, I'm so tired of doing specialty stitches. S is towards the end of September, so it will be, check back then to see if I'm moaning and complaining about my specialty stitches. So far I'm doing okay. It's interesting to me. I would say chart number 1 was my best one because I flew through that one not only once, I did it twice. D, E, F, I just had a little bit of a fight. Well, Eastern Stitch was my biggest problem there. And now that I've firmly decided that Swell 103 is not the right choice of thread for this piece on this particular piece of fabric, I think some of my decisions going forward will also be easier. GHI hasn't been bad. Again, I'm not thrilled with those God's Eyes, so check back next week. But I actually I like, this one was nice. This is an interesting stitch. I think if I were using it somewhere else, I would clearly use different colors, but it was an interesting one to do. Everything else has been fine. It's like something is really wrong there. That was a lovely display of the back of my piece. So you may have seen all of the weird things that I do to end things off, but anyway, there's the front of it. There we go. So this one's fine, interesting. Yeah, everything else has been fine. So it'll be interesting to see when I get into the next 3, how they look. The other thing, I forgot to do this one as well. If you're wondering, you may have noticed that I've actually got this scrolling a little bit differently. Again, because I watch other people and I read different things. I actually watched someone, because you'll remember I went and met that friend of mine and I had taken this off of the scroll rods to take so she could see it up close and in person. And when I was putting it back on, I went, that is my perfect opportunity to try this other way of scrolling that somebody had commented on, where the top scrolls over. So normally I stitch in the ditch. You'll be able to see that when we get to my next piece, which means like everything tends to look like this, where the fabric is smooth on the back and it's rolling this way. So someone had sort of said that they find to help with their tension is to roll the bottom like under and roll the top over. So I'm giving that a whirl. I don't think I did even when I was loading it on, I knew I wasn't doing a good job of loading this. So I think the other step is I need to reload this again. And upside with the Arabesque frames is that you can reload at any time. Oh yeah, that also reminds me. I also took out the pink stitches in F and did them the very, very lightest shade. It was bothering me, so I took them out and redid them. I followed the chart again, not the front cover, changed the color to the lightest of the pinks and used the lightest of the pinks over here in the G as well. I'd sat with that F for a while and it was bugging me, and I just went, again, I will have worked on this piece for a year, Sundays for a year, and I'm kind of, you know, I don't want to get to the end and go, ugh. So I took it out, I restitched it. The interesting thing is I think that's the right choice for F, but I'm debating G. I think G actually needs to be the one shade darker. So check back next week and see if I've changed that one. I know. Yeah, I'm totally indecisive and I'm winging these things as I go along. But it's my piece and I get to do whatever I want, no matter how crazy I make myself while I'm going through the process. Upside is you don't actually have to be sitting in the room with me while I'm driving myself crazy and debating everything from, you know, heaven to earth. Anyway, so there's my sampler of stitches. It's coming along. Like I say, it's mostly on track. I wish I was a little bit further ahead because I just think it's going to give me that leeway. You know, the ending result is if I feel like I'm getting behind, it just means I have to take a not Sunday, a different day of the week to stitch on and catch up. So there you go. There's that one. And then the last piece that I worked on was Jerusalem by Thea Gouverneur. This is my Lent piece. We are now officially out of Lent. And I decided I was still... So the interesting thing to me is after I did last week's video and after I got the April cottage all completed, the answer was, you know, so I was going to reward myself. So once April was completed, I was going to work on something else. And then I have other projects, again, that I need to get finished in April. So I've still got a week left to do that. And my reward to myself was like, what is my reward going to be? And the really interesting thing is I actually wanted to work on Jerusalem. So after all that time, and I think I said it's like, it's ready for it to go away. My answer was after working on the April cottage, I was ready to work on Jerusalem again. So Jerusalem came out again. So for those of you who were in mourning that you weren't going to see Jerusalem, surprise, here's Jerusalem again. Because I had a very specific, I was working towards a very specific goal. And my goal was, now that I had debated and dithered and made all of my decisions about metallics, I had this thing going on in my head where it's like, you need to get those metallics in and done at the top of the, I'm still calling them turrets. I don't know. If someone's smart out there and they know architectural terms and they know what they're really called, please let me know in the comments down below, because then I will call them by their correct name. I'm currently calling them turrets, and I know that that's not correct, but anyway, the turrets up here, which are like all of this stitching, all of that is metallic, right? So for those four turrets, everything up there at the top is done entirely with metallics, and so done entirely with light effects. But I just had it in my head that if I sat down and got all of that stitched, you know, the next time I brought this out, I'd be feeling really good about it, because I'd go, the metallics are done. The metallics are done. Now I just am back into the land of regular DMC stitching. It will be fine. It will be easy. You do your markup RXP, etc., etc. And as I was working on this, the interesting thing is, because I know you haven't memorized the picture, is that once you get to the other side of the Church of Mary Magdalene, we're back into the green. So I really want to, you know, the next thing is actually sort of work on all of this, so then I can get all of this green done and catch, you know, there's about 20, maybe 25, you know, sporadic stitches over here that should have been caught, but at that point it was ready to work on something else there. So, because I knew there's more green coming over here, and when those colors come up again, that's when I'm going to come in and finish those. So I'm very happy with where I got to on this. I stayed up ridiculously late last night to get the last color of metallic in. It's used in a very few sporadic spots at the very base of these metallic areas. And I'm, you know how smart I am. I go, there were 26 stitches of that last metallic color, and I got them in and I got them done. So I'm very happy. I'm very happy with how this is. I'm very glad, as I, you know, I always say this, I'm very glad that I've got all of those metallics in, because for the rest of this page, other than when I get to doing the back stitching, there is some metallic that is called for in the back stitching, and, you know, I'm going to moan and whine and complain when I get to that. But other than that, for the rest of this entire page, it's all just regular DMC. So very happy with that accomplishment this week. I probably spent more time on Jerusalem doing this than I wanted to. I was telling another friend of mine that I was actually my stitching was really slow when I was working on the metallics. Now, I would say I'm much happier with how these stitches are looking compared to how the ones in the Dome of the Rock are looking. I'm not going back and taking them out and redoing that, because that's, you know, no. But I will say, I think these ones are looking better, and I think it's because I was going so slowly. The other interesting thing is when I first came in to stitch it, I was having a real fight with the metallic yet again. And again, one of the things that I did is I sized up. I just went, I'm done fighting with you. I'm done fighting with you. I sized up. I got out a size 24 needle, which is quite large for a 36 count linen. And you can noticeably see it as you're putting it through, but it really solved a lot of my fight with the metallic problems. So I ended up using a size 24 for all of the rest of it. And that may actually, again, also factor into that these stitches are looking better, because I just sized up. I don't know, that I think a 22 is really too big. 24 was certainly more than enough. I'm not worried. Like, you could see the holes as I was going through the linens and all this kind of stuff. But my answer is, we all know that this is a long-term project. These fibers, you know, I'm not leaving my needle in the fabric to keep that hole size. And, you know, as you come along, the holes, the fabric starts, I call it, it starts to breathe again and goes, like, after that stressful, you know, having to deal with the size 24 needle going through it, it recovers. So again, another tip for me to you, if you're having a battle with the metallics, maybe just size up one more needle size. Like I say, it actually made quite a bit of difference going, again, I didn't feel like I had as much of a problem when I was doing the Dome of the Rock, but for some reason, when I came into it this time, I was really battling with the metallic to the point where it's just like, just stop, size up the needle, and keep going. So use the size 24 needle. Everything went swimmingly well. Very happy that I have all of the metallic, other than backstitching, for page 4 is now complete, and I think that is a great accomplishment. Actually, I know everybody says, could we get close-ups? So there's where it is. Now, again, because I know some of you had made the comments that you were going to be in mourning because you were going to miss Jerusalem. I have these plans for bringing it out this year. So originally, I think my plan was it was going to be Lent and be done. But like I say, it's been, it's probably going to stay out more this year than I had originally anticipated. I was watching Carolyn Zook from C. Zook Stitch, and I think this is from a couple of weeks ago, where someone was asking her questions about her full coverage pieces. And she said the key to success on larger projects is consistency. Okay, so first of all, we all know I'm not going to be great at consistency, but I've talked about before, like, you know, a lot of the projects that I worked on last year, a lot of them are not finished and a lot of them have not made appearances yet while I'm working on other things. So I don't want this to be, you know, a 20-year project. I don't want it to be a 20-year project. I've got my magnum opus, which you have not seen, and which I have not worked on in many, many years, which is going to come out later this year. But part of her line is like that consistently. So if you're bringing it out more regularly to stitch on, and it's not so much about that you have to make huge, great leaps of accomplishment. You just have to get something accomplished. You're making progress. You're moving your project forward. And I really felt that this week. You know, again, it was interesting. Finished the April cottage and went, okay, your reward is you get to work on something else for a bit, which, like I say, that bit lasted a little bit longer than I was expecting. But I felt like I made really great progress. And so I think that's what I'm going to be doing for the next little while is sort of, you know, again, I like to set myself some specific goals to get accomplished in any given week. But once I get that goal accomplished, my goal is to work on something else. So Jerusalem might even be coming back next week too. Because again, I'm sitting here going like, you got all the metallic done? There's no more metallic on that entire page. You could finish the rest of the page and it would all be regular DMC and happy stitching. So again, I think it was a great decision on my part to say, just get the metallic done, because now I have this like, ooh, it will be so much easier and to work on the rest of it. So Jerusalem might be coming out again. Like I say, so I do have some specific goals for what I want to get accomplished this coming week, this last week of April. And we'll see how, the answer is, we'll see how long it takes me to accomplish that goal. And then we'll see what I do with, once I accomplish those goals. And like I said, I've got some very specific goals for this week. And once I get those goals accomplished, we'll see what I do with the rest of my time, because it will depend on how much time is left. Sorry, Flosstube itchy nose. All right, so that is my stitching for this week. Not a ton of projects, but I'm very happy. I'm very happy with my progress. April cottage is complete. Got those ridiculous Eastern stitches completed, and I'm almost through chart number 3 and all the metallic on Jerusalem. As far as I'm concerned, that was a rock star week. That was a good week of stitching. All right, let's talk about Stashquisitions, because I got some this week. I had mentioned before that I had placed an order. So this was quite a while ago. There was a shop that was having a Super Bowl sale, and I was partaking in there were several shops that I get their newsletters and all that kind of stuff. I chose to order from this particular one because it was 20% off everything, whether it was in stock or not. So I appreciated that. A lot of stores, they run their Super Bowl sales and it's only if it's in stock product, which is that's great too. This one was like, it's all products they had on their website, whether it was in stock or not, which was great. So I ordered, and I knew, I was pretty sure, even when I placed the order, that they were going to have to order things. When you have to order things, who knows how long things are going to take, and Nashville was coming up, and there were some things going on with the staff at their shop. Like they had, you know, because I get their newsletter, I was well informed about everything that was going on, and I went, yep, I don't have my order yet, and we all know generally most of those things are going to show up in my 2022 stitching plan, so they could take as long as they wanted. It didn't bother me whatsoever. You know, here it went. But I did get my package from them, and it was really great. I was very excited to see all these things. So, just realized some of them are not in order. Whoops. There we go. So one of the things that I particularly drew me to order from this store is this. Yes, I'm taking the cover out. Yes. Just trying to make sure I don't show any charts. So this is Santa's Hat of Holly Gifts Some Ho 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 and Peppermints. So a really long-winded title. This is from the Bent Creek. This comes as a kit, and you know how much I like a kit. But Erin from the Steel City Stitchers had worked on this last year, and I loved how this looked. And you can only get this as a kit. So again, I loved how it looked, 20% off sale. I ordered it. So what you get in the kit is, that part I'm not taking out because you'll see the pattern behind it. This is 18 count linen in brown. So I always knew I was not going to love the brown. I wasn't going to love the brown. It also comes with all of the called for floss, and they've got them pre-bagged for you. But because you're working on 18 count, what they have provided you with is number 5 braid from DMC, which means you only need 1 strand as you're stitching over the 18 count linen. Now, I've used the pearl cottons before. That doesn't bother me. My biggest issue is brown fabric. So I have a little, now this isn't going to happen for a while. I got it while it was on sale. So one of the things that I've done this week is I've actually looked at, let's cover up that little bit of the chart, is I've looked at what my 18 count options are, because, you know, I would rather stitch this on gray. So I've got a couple of options. One, I can buy an 18 count white something or other and then, you know, try dyeing myself at home. Maybe. My next option is, so far I've not been able to find any 18 count grays online. As I've said previously, like, I've inherited some fabrics that I've got sitting in stash, which I probably have not necessarily paid entire attention to because it was coming from somebody else. I just went, here comes the stash. So I need to go through that and make sure, you know, I can't say that over time there wasn't a gray that has now since been discontinued and that one of my relatives might have picked it up. So I do need to spend a little bit of time stash diving to see if for some reason I actually do have a piece of 18 count gray. If you know of an 18 count gray linen that I could use, please, please, please put it in the comment section down below, because that's my preferred. I have not been able to find an 18 count gray linen. I can find 18 count Ada in gray. So I need to think about that the next time I run out to my LNS. I will have a look and see what they've got in stock. I think I would prefer an 18 count linen as opposed to an 18 count Ada, but check back later. So those are my debates. Worst case scenario is I can go, well, this is lovely. Most importantly, you care about the chart. So I can always go back and I can stitch this on some other gray linen or even weave and just, you know, the pearl cotton will be too big if you move up to like, so an 18 count linen is equivalent to a 36 count linen, but the pearl cottons are then too thick to use on the 36. Like, that would make for a very bulky project, which I would be unhappy with. I can stitch it on a 32 count because we all know I've got 32 count even weave in my house, no problem. that is my fallback position. And what it really means is that I would not use the pearl cottons. I would just end up using regular DMC. And as I said last week, one of the good things about a lot of the products in the DMC lines is that they have fidelity of numbering systems across their product lines. So the numbers that they use for their colors in the pearl cottons are exactly what they use for their cotton flosses. So since I have the numbers, all I would need to do is pick the equivalent floss and stitch it that way. So happy I've got the chart. I am debating if I can just find an 18 count gray linen, then I would use the kit. I would use the kit provided threads. There is a charm in here which I actually don't know that I'm going to use it. I think I would rather put something silver on it, but anyway, check back later at some point when I decide to start stitching this, which is who knows exactly when that's going to be. But that's what started this order. And then I went, well, since you're ordering and you're having to pay shipping and it's 20% off, you should probably top up the order, right? So I topped up the order. So I made this comment when I did the Craft Connection one, because I showed that I had gotten the May Quaker design by From the Heart, like by Wendy. So from this particular shop, I got January, because this is the one that started it, where I'm like, I like that. I got February, and again, I like it because it's not too hardy. I'm okay with the pink and the green combination. I just don't like, I know that there are hearts built into the Quaker and all that kind of stuff, but I tend to look at this and not go, it's all hearts, because, I'm not necessarily fond of the hearts. And a couple of the hearts may be somewhat shape-shifting in that one anyway, but not bad. I liked it enough to get it. And I got the March one, because that one was also out when I placed this order. So I now have 4 of the 7 charts that they have released. So far out of 7, I am planning on getting all 7 of them. My current expectation is I think I will be getting all of them. Even though August through December are not out and sight unseen, I feel like I'm pretty sure I'm getting them all. So those will be future Stashquisitions. I also picked up this Erica Michaels. I showed you last year I got one of the caroling berries. I decided I was going to get a second one. This is Joy to the World, because Joy to the World is one of my top 3 favorite carols. I know I haven't made any berries yet, and I bought another one, but that's just how life goes. Worst case scenario, again, with these ones is if I make a berry and I go, I can't stand berries, and like, I don't understand why everybody loves them so much. You don't have to do it as a berry. You've got the chart here, so you can do it as a small, cushion or flat full, or who knows, whatever you do, but you can do it sort of as the square shape, as opposed to the shape that's designed for making into a berry. You get both of them in this chart. I picked up these next 2 because I was having a moment, because when I placed the order, I'd been looking at sort of my 5-year plan, and I was like going, I'm not good with necessarily fall things, generally because so many fall things are, yellow and orange and brown. We all know my feelings on those colors. So this was clearly driven, these next 2 charts are clearly driven by going, I felt like I needed to get a few more fall themed things. So this is from My Big Toe, because, I like my big toes too. It says, let us be thankful. And clearly you can tell that this is not a fall color palette. So it's an interesting color palette, and it was one where it's like, I love the sentiment. I certainly, with everything going on in the world and all sorts of things, I I know that I've said this before. I am incredibly, incredibly grateful for the life that I have. And I do not take it for granted that I lead a very privileged life and I lead a very comfortable life. And certainly there are a lot of women in particular across the world who can't say that. So I am very grateful for the life that I have, and I totally acknowledge that I do lead a very privileged life for a woman in this day and age. Anyway, so the sentiment is one that I absolutely agree with. And again, I thought it was an interesting color palette because it's one where I go, I could stitch it and it's fall themed, but it's one where you could leave it up all year round. Now, I might change some of the colors in here to go with some other things, but it gave me a starting off point, and that's why that one came home. This next one, I laughed because I was catching up with the City Stitchers. Sorry, I'm the City Stitcher. There's only one of me. I was catching up with the Sunshine Stitchers because Shelia's back from vacation. Shelia, we missed you so much. Anyway, she was showing this because she was showing her ink circles as part of their Garon Designer Focus Stitch Along. And last year I placed an order with Hands On Design to get some of the stuff that they had that you can only get directly from them. And I looked at this chart, but at that point I was like going, you've got enough and be done with it. But it stayed in the back of my mind as a chart that I probably wanted and didn't have. And again, the sale put me over. So this is Second Spring, which is a collaboration between Hands On Design and Ink Circles. Now, these are somewhat fall-y colors. Molasses, Collards, Terracotta, and Cayenne from Weeks Dye Works. Now, I will probably slightly shift that palette a little bit, but not bad. It's not too brown. What did they stitch this on? The sampler was stitched on 36 count linen, the colorway linen by Weeks Dye Works. So that's still going to be too beigey for me, but that's okay. Nice neutral, and who knows what I do with that. But I was okay with this colorway. So you get the pattern for this bigger sampler, and you get the pattern for all 6 of these. I think they call them. Yeah, they are calling them biscornus. I was going to call them ornaments, but yeah. So it's been in my thought process for a bit, where I go like, you should probably add that to your stash, and so it just came home. Again, when it's showing up in the 5-year plan is anybody's guess, but my answer is I can now comfortably stop thinking about this chart because I've got it. And those are my Stashquisitions for this week. So again, I had no problems that I had to wait a long time for this one again, because I knew I was quite comfortable that there were some of those things that as I was ordering that they were not in stock and they were going to have to order, and how long it was going to take. That was a whole thing. I knew that there were some that the store itself, for a variety of reasons, was having some challenges, and I'm okay with that. So I like to consider myself a really good customer, because I'm not ordering things going, I need it now. Now, there are certain reasons why people may need to have that attitude. I'm not one of those people, because there's nothing that's going on in my stitching world that can't be delayed, put off, because I've got other things to stitch. And we all know I have a lot of things to stitch. And again, as far as I know, none of these charts are making an appearance this calendar year. So, they could take as long as they wanted, and I wasn't fussed whatsoever. They didn't charge my credit card until they shipped my order. Everything was good. I was totally fine. It's not like they were, like I'd paid them and I was sitting for months and months waiting for things. Actually, even if I had, I would still be fine. But that's me. And that's my attitude towards my stitching shopping escapades. If you wanted to know, I have some planned escapades for the rest of the year. Take from that what you will. because I need more stash. Anyway, and with that, let's get into the topic. So if you looked at the labeling for this week's episode and you went, I don't think she's got the topic correct, Denise very graciously very quickly pointed out to me last week that my numbering was off on my videos, so I very quickly corrected that. So thank you, Denise, for that helpful hint that I was off on my numbering. But the labeling for this episode is correct. Let's talk about 2023. I know we are technically not even a third of the way through 2022 because we have not finished up April, but I'm talking about 2023. And the reason why I'm talking about 2023 is because I've said multiple times that I have a 5-year plan, and I have a 5-year plan. That 5-year plan, things on that change regularly as new patterns come out, and I look at things and I get into my stash, and like certainly the 5-year plan that you have not seen is not static. It moves, it changes, things happen in there. But I am getting to that point in time where I'm looking ahead to 2023 and figuring out what my plan is for that, trying to get a little more settled in what that plan is so that I can correctly assess what I need to get, what's going to be happening. And part of that plan, there are some things that I need to order. One of them is a Picture This Plus fabric. Some of you may go like, does it really have to be Picture This Plus? There are all these fabric dyers out there. Could you find a substitute that might be quicker? And the answer is maybe. But I have a piece of fabric in my stash from Picture This Plus where I go, this is the perfect color for that design. It's just that the piece that I have in my stash is not big enough. I only have a fat 1/8, and it will not fit in a fat 1/8 by any sense of the imagination. It's not like even if I lessen my borders, the answer is it's not going to fit. The design area will not fit on a fat 1/8. So I need to order a piece of fabric, and we all know there continue to be issues with Picture This Plus takes a long time to get, and I totally acknowledge that. So one of my things is I just need to place my order so that my lovely LNS can get on with ordering it, and it's going to show up at some point. So I think right now the line from Picture This Plus, and as usual, I didn't bother to check before I got on here, I think the line is it's still taking them about 10 months to process orders. That's just how far behind they are. And my answer is, as long as I get my order in here, 10 months from now takes me into, March of next year. That's still loads of time for potentially when it may be coming up. And, I know my LNS is regularly placing orders. And so they may have ordered this on one of their existing orders because they're ordering, to fill customer requests as well as shop requests or what they think the shop will need. And again, they're having to think 10 months in advance. So they're placing orders. So it might come in sooner than that. It might come in, 10 months. It might come in later than 10 months, depending on what's happening. We've talked about this before, that Picture This Plus is also because they're trying to at least process the orders. The risk is if you place an order and they are out of the base fabric, what they're currently doing is they're canceling those items off of your order, which means you have to reorder, which means you're into a second round of 10 months. So, if it turns out to be a 20-month escapade, I would still get it, hopefully, by the end of 2023. Might throw the stitching plan into a little bit of a I might have to do some adjusting. But again, that's the risk that I take. I've made the choice of fabric. I've decided I want it to be Picture This Plus. That's just one of the things that comes with ordering Picture This Plus. There's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing my shop can do about it. That's just how things are going. So I've got to get that order in because that's going to take, a while. And, I'll just go, someday my shop will go, hey, surprise, we have something for you. And that's going to be great. But I am looking ahead to, sort of more concretely coming up with what I want to stitch in 2023 so that I can start working on making sure that I have all of the things. And I already know that there are things that I am planning on working on in 2023 that I do not have the things. I don't have the fabric. I need to order. There's actually a couple of pieces for sure that I need to order. There are flosses that I know that I'm going to need to order. There are flosses that I know that I'm going to need to debate and dither and do all that kind of stuff. And so I'm just giving myself a really long lead time so that when I'm going to kit up 2023, that I feel like I'm in good shape. Yeah, it's like, wait, I have an example, but it's not in the room. I forgot. It's in the basket in the other room. But anyway, so that's what I'm going through. The other interesting thing is I'm also going through the back half of 2022 as part of that process. I'm looking at the projects that I've got scheduled for 2022. It was interesting. There's one that I've got for the back half of this year where there's no, well, actually, okay, there's two bags right now that don't have fabric. Yes, I think it's two. I was gonna say maybe three, two for sure that don't have fabric in it. And as I was opening it up, I was looking at one of them going like, why don't you have, oh yes, I know why you don't have fabric in there. It's a debate that I'm having with myself. So now again, so that fabric has not been ordered. Like one of the things that I'm considering for that has not been ordered. I need to have that. I need to finish the debate, make a decision, and then decide if I'm ordering or not. We'll check back later this year. It's in the back. That one I'm not as worried about. We're in loads of time because it's very late in the year. I've got lots of time to get that. It's not a picture of this plus fabric. It's none of that. So if I make that decision, I'm fully confident that I will be able to get that fabric in time for when I start stitching. So that is, so that is my process. I'm going through, there's ones where I need to collect the called for fibers and start looking at them and deciding. Some of them I'm 100% sure that I'm going to keep. There are other ones in there where I go like, I might need to tweak that for me. So let's, again, let's pretend second spring was coming up. It's not. This is not scheduled for 2022, nor is it scheduled for 2023, but it's a good example. So let's pretend that this is one of the ones, I'm clearly not going to use the called for linen. I'm already thinking I want to slightly adjust what these colors are. So again, I would need to find my palette, pick my palette, get comfortable with my palette, and then make sure I had those flosses. In the design, they've said for the sampler, if you're doing the sampler, that you will need multiple skeins of actually most of the colors. There's only four colors in that sampler. 3 of them you need 2. Actually, potentially, yeah, so it's 2 skeins of each of them if you're doing 2 over 2 and 36 count, which means if you're taking it down to 32, you may need more. And if you're wanting to do the 6 biscortas, you'll need another 2 on top of that. So, right, so I'd be looking at potentially needing 5 skeins from the same dye lot to do this chart. So I would want to place an order for that all at the same time so that I would get 5 skeins from the same dye lot. So those are the things that I'm working through. Again, I'm looking through Stash. People are showing things on Flosstubes. They make me go into my Stash and look for other things. And as hard as it is to believe, I am working on my 2023 stitching plan so that I'm coming up with my fabric choices. I'm coming up with my fiber choices. Since I've been using Markup RXP, I love Markup RXP. I'm still planning on doing a video comparing Markup RXP and Pattern Keeper. That's yet to come. To date, Markup RXP is working best for me because I am using non-digital patterns. They're older patterns. I'm having to scan in the pattern to get them into the program. And so far, Markup RXP is working much, much better for me than Pattern Keeper. I've tried them both. I'm not giving up on Pattern Keeper because I haven't pulled in a digital chart yet. But so far, Markup RxP is working great for me, and I would like to use it on a go-forward basis. So a step that I'm adding to my getting ready for 2023, as well as the back end of 2022, is that for some of these designs, I want to get them scanned in so that I can add them into Markup RxP so they're ready to go, right? So I can just have them in there, they're ready to go. I will have done the steps. I've got some, you have to, I've got a chart that's coming up later this year where it's a lot of specialty stitches. It's an old chart. It's a hand-drawn chart. Yep, you heard that right, a hand-drawn chart. That one is not going to do well in Markup RxP. So that's an example where it's not going to go into Markup RxP because it isn't going to do me any good. Specialty stitches, hand-drawn, that's a recipe for disaster. But the other ones, as we're progressing through, I want to get those scanned in, and I want to be efficient about how I'm getting them scanned in. There are some things that I can scan in at home, but if there's if a pattern is on an 11 by 17 piece of paper, or some odd size, if it's larger than a legal sized piece of paper, I actually I have to take it somewhere to get it scanned in because my devices at home aren't capable of scanning those in where I am. Anyway, so again, just being efficient with my time, pulling them all together, getting them in. But I'm actually working on all of that starting now. Final decisions don't have to be made. Some of the, as I said, some of the decisions I'm 100% certain of, so I'm moving forward. I'm making sure that those are all kitted up. Some of the other things are still in flux, but I know that I've got to get some stuff ordered that I don't, despite the stash that I don't have everything that I need for what that plan is looking to be. Given supply chain issues, given everything that's going on, I just want to continue in my nice little bubble world of shopping that I live in that says I can put the order in and however long it takes. I don't need to be cranky with my LNS. It can come when it comes and it will still work. But part of that has to do with the fact that I'm working on 2023 now. If I work on 2023 in December, here's the worst case scenario. If it's the middle of December and I come up with what my new year, new start is, and I don't have any of the things for it, that's a disaster. Because who knows if you've got a complicated fabric at that point. If it's the middle of December, you've got people going on vacation, both at the shops, the distributors, the designers. There are lots of designers that go, we're shutting down for Christmas vacation and we won't be shipping if you don't have your order in. In some cases I've seen, if you don't have your order in by early December, we won't be in a position to ship your product until January. So, cautionary note, if you are wanting to do a new year, new start, and you have an idea of what that is, maybe, make those decisions sooner as opposed to later so that you can make sure you're really ready. If I did it in the middle of December, I'm probably hooped. That's an instance where you may not be able to get your fabric. You may not be able to get your chart. You may not be able to get your threads in time. And certainly if you have to order it from somewhere where they have to ship it to you, with all of the Christmas rush of shipping, you're looking at a very good chance that you won't have it in time for a new year, new start. I was watching some people, at the beginning of this year, they were trying to participate in Laura's birthday start, which was Elizabeth Isles, and several people didn't have their materials in time to actually start it on New Year's Day because they, made the decision later. Nope. Hey, lots of things go into why decisions get made later than they should. Me and my metallics. Anyway, that's just how things roll. But if you're then but I really wanted to make sure that I'm working on this on January 1 so I can feel like I'm part of the group of the community that is stitching Laura's birthday sale on January 1st because it's her birthday. You might miss out on those ones because you don't have your stuff. So I'm working on coming up with my concrete plans for 2023, getting them finalized, going through the stash, working on the kitting up. Like I say, it's me. So you know that there's going to be a spreadsheet going on behind the scenes while I work on some things. And I'm working on those things and getting it worked out so that I can get my orders in. I can start receiving the stuff. So there will be orders going in very specifically for 2023. When I get those Stashquisitions, I'm not telling you that they're for 2023. So you will not know whether they're just adding to Stash because I wanted them, or if they're coming into Stash because I want them for 2023. You're going to have to tune in later for that one. But I'm working on it now. And I've got some very specific orders in my head that I know that I need to get in. So that will be sort of one of the goals this week, is to get some of those orders in. And again, it's just like it's going to be multiple orders. A lot of it's going to be going through my LNS. As I said, as I showed when I did the craft connection, if I'm traveling, I do try to go to, if there is a brick and mortar shop that is open to the public where I'm going, I really do try to go on my travels to go see them, because I love going into different stores. Who doesn't love going into a different store? So I'm hoping that I have some of those opportunities as part of my travels. So, and who can walk into a shop and really walk out with nothing? That's not a skill that I have. So I have those plans. I'm hoping to have those experiences. So there will be more Stash coming. Who knows what that's going to look like? I said to you, I've got some secret plans. I'm already mentally making some other orders that are not necessarily for 2023, but just certain things that I want to add to the Stash because I want them in Stash, and what that looks like. Those will, and again, believe it or not, in my head, I'm actually doing timing of those. So I'm working on timing of when I'm doing my 2023, timing of when I'm doing some of those other things. Everybody has a budget. Well, hopefully. I'm in a finance field, so hopefully everybody has a budget. I hope everybody's safely working within their budget. And again, that factors into, I'm not going in and doing this huge lump sum order that gets everything done at one time. That's just not my nature. That's not how I do it. I do try to spread it out. There are a few things that I've got in the plans. And again, how I'm budgeting for this. I was watching somebody this week, I don't remember who it was, where it's like, even if the called for is silk, you don't have to do it in silk. DMC is a lovely alternative, and I think we don't do enough justice for designer for using DMC. There are tons of, Jerusalem. All of Jerusalem is done with DMC. There is not a variegated thread in that whole thing. It does make it a little more confetti in certain spots, but never mind that. But that is, if I dare, I will take on anybody who says that Jerusalem is not going to look fantastic. Jerusalem, at the end of the day, is going to look amazing, and it's done with DMC. So don't feel that you have to spend the money for silks or over-dyed threads or whatever. Sometimes I was watching somewhere where they said they looked at their chart and they went, out of all of the over-dyeds, they looked at their chart and they went, this one really does need to be an over-dyed, but everything else DMC was going to be just fine. And I think that's great. Work within your budget. As someone who works in the finance field, please, please, please have a budget. Please, please, please work safely within your budget, just for your financial health. And good financial health usually leads to better mental health. There's a lot of discussion about how money issues and the toll that takes from a mental perspective. So I know I'm way off topic here. Please have a budget. Please work within your budget safely for your financial health, for your mental health, for your stitching health. End of public service announcement on Judy's views on budgeting for cross stitch, which will not be a topic. All right. So with that, that's the end of the topic. Yep, I'm working on that. So you will be seeing some Stashquisitions over time as things start to arrive. I won't tell you which ones are for 2023 and which ones are potentially for other things that are in the 5-year plan. You'll just have to stay tuned and see that. And with that, as always, thinking about the people of the Ukraine. Yeah, anyway, this is crazy. This is crazy. I don't know how to fix it. I truly wish I did know how to fix it. But just know that if you are from the Ukraine, I'm thinking about you. If you have relatives, friends in the Ukraine, please know that I'm thinking about them and praying for them. I'm also praying for, there are a lot of situations going on globally that aren't necessarily talked about as frequently as the Ukraine, but there are a lot of situations going on globally that are impacting people, and those always concern me. I always, you all know, I want everybody to be safe and healthy. Step number one, everybody I want safe and healthy. That's my number one objective. So anyway, and we get, as we say there, I hope everyone is staying safe. Crossing the street, everything else, let's start with the basics. I hope everybody's staying safe. I hope everybody's staying healthy. I hope you're finding some time to stitch and that your stitching is bringing you enjoyment. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care, guys.